Hi guys, this is Lauren from Good Life Templates. Today I'm going to be walking you through the process of how to plan a successful silent auction. I've planned quite a few silent auctions over the years for all different types of causes, and there's certain tips that'll apply to most auctions and other nuances that'll be specific to your location, cause, setting, etc. In this video, I'll try to cover both those basics as well as some of the nuances so you have everything you need to know to plan a successful silent auction. And all of this will also be included in my silent auction planning checklist, which is linked in the description of this video. Let's get started. So first off, during the initial planning phase, you're going to want to set goals for your team and also figure out some logistics. When I say logistics, I'm talking about the date of the event, the venue, and the people who are going to be working on your team and what their roles will be. This is a great time to have a brainstorming session with your team to figure out what you want your event to look like. The planning process will be a whole lot easier if you have defined roles and goals. A few tasks you'll want to define clearly are who will contact sponsors, who will store the donations, who will print off all the necessary documents, and who will set up the thank yous. This is also a great time to set goals for your team, such as how many donations you'd like to collect, how much money you'd like to raise, which can guide what type of sponsors you contact, how many people you'd like to see at your event, and how you're going to reach them. If you have a big team, you can also consider motivating them with prizes and milestones. So for example, the first person who brings in a donation worth over $100 gets their coffee paid for at the next meeting. This will depend on your organization's size, structure, and budget, so it's completely optional. The next step is gathering items for the auction, which is perhaps the most challenging part, but also the most important. I'd recommend aiming for 10 to 40 silent auction items. Any more than that and can get a bit overwhelming for your visitors, but any less and you might be better off going with a different format such as a raffle or a door prize. Start by making a list of the businesses and people you'd like to contact for donations and figure out what you might want them to donate because they may very well ask you. You likely will have to do some cold calling, but remember to tap into your friends and family network. I won't go into too much detail here, but these are the people who know you best and know what you're passionate about, and you also know what they have to offer, so they can be a great resource to you. When you're thinking about what type of donation items to aim for, there are a couple approaches to consider. The first is to look at the theme of the event or the types of people attending, and try to find items that will cater to their interests. If you know you have a lot of camping buffs attending, try to go to outdoorsy stores to ask for donations, so you'll know you'll have something on the table that folks will be interested in. Another thing to consider is that people at your event aren't always shopping for themselves. They might also be looking for gifts for others. This can be highly date dependent, so make sure to have a look at your calendar before making your donation wish list. For example, if your event is 2 weeks before Mother's Day, you'll want to have lots of mom-oriented items on your donation table, such as spa coupons, self-care packages, perhaps a free flight coupon, stuff like that. Finally, I've observed at past silent auctions that a lot of the time the best-selling items aren't in fact items, but experiences. I'm talking about coupons for dinners, spa experiences, passes to go ziplining, things like that. Lots of things that appeal to the senses and people can picture themselves having fun doing. These sorts of things can also be kind of ambiguous in terms of value, which can help you drive up bids. Another strategy you can use to augment this effect is to create packages of items, such as a dinner coupon plus a movie coupon, or a coupon for a blowout plus a manicure. This really feeds that experience effect and also the price ambiguity. When you're presenting these types of items, make sure to use lots of rich descriptive words and a lot of images if you can. This can be implemented using an item description sheet, which goes next to the item and the bid sheet. I have a template for this in my Etsy store, and I'll put the link in the description so you can use mine if you like. As a side note, it's up for discussion whether it's a good or bad thing to have items with a set value to them. What I mean is it better to have a $200 gift certificate for a restaurant, or alternatively, have a 4-course meal for 2? You'll rarely have people bid more than the value of the item unless they're really motivated and passionate about either the item or the cause, so it can affect how much money you bring in. This is really up to you to decide on a case-by-case basis, but it's just something to think about. Getting back to the planning process, your next step is writing your pitch, which you'll include in a sponsorship letter, and you'll also want to memorize it for when you visit businesses. The letter should contain the facts of your cause, but also empower the potential donor to help you reach your goals. I have a draft sponsorship letter in my Etsy shop that you can use if you need some guidance. I'll put the link in the description. A great angle you can propose to the potential donors is the idea that they could turn a donation into a repeat customer. This happened to me recently, actually, when I bid on a 5-pack of yoga classes in a silent auction. And I think I only spent $10 on this and I was the winner, but I enjoyed the classes so much that I went on and bought a regular membership. So for that donor, they turned a donation for a few classes into a full-time, full-paying customer. So work this angle, but if you receive a firm no after some gentle encouragement, just remember that it's not worth burning bridges over, so you can let them off the hook if they've said no. Once you have your letter written, it's time to distribute it. So print it off on your company or organization's letterhead with your logo and contact information. Make sure to print as many copies as you'll need for as many businesses as you plan to visit. And I highly, highly recommend visiting those businesses in person because it's a lot harder to say no to someone standing in front of you than it is to ignore an email. And a reality of the situation is that a lot of the time, the person you're going to be talking to is not the manager or owner who has the say on these things. So if that's the case, leave the sponsorship letter with them and ask that employee when would be a good time for you to come back and talk to a manager or owner. If they don't know, get the phone number for either them or the person you need to be contacting and make sure to follow up. Another tip for this part of the process is to try and bring someone with you to ask for donations who will directly benefit from those funds. So for example, if you're raising money for the local fire hall, try to bring a firefighter with you. If you're raising money for a school, try to bring a student, or if you're raising money for an animal shelter, bring your dog. This will work especially well if that person is cute or adorable. And again, the logic here is just that it's harder to say no directly to the person asking for your help. By the way, while you're out on these visits, be prepared to walk away with donation items because they sometimes will hand them to you on the spot. So if you can, have some sort of basket or stroller or car with you to store them. The next step is promoting the event. In my experience, silent auctions are often embedded in some other type of event, such as a dinner or a stag and doe. That said, there's no reason you can't advertise it independently. That way people are ready to drop some dough when they show up. Here's an example of a poster you could use to promote the event that has all the important information and is eye-catching and topical. Again, link to this template will be in my bio. A good time to double down on your marketing efforts is after you receive your first few big donations. This gives people something they can get excited to bid on. The best format for this is probably in an e-newsletter or social media posts where you can include photos of the item and also tag those sponsors in order to give them even a bit more coverage. Next up is setting up the event. There's a few logistical items to consider here, such as when you'll have access to the venue, how much space you'll have to display your items, and how the donations are even going to get there. When displaying your items, you want each of them to shine individually, but you don't want them to be so spread out that it looks like you're compensating for a lack of items. So try to find a display that strikes a balance between the two. One way to do so is to use props like boxes or flyer stands to make your display more interesting. You'll want to avoid having all your items laying flat on the table if you can avoid it, so use props to add levels to your display to make it more visually appealing. This is a common tactic you'll see anytime you go in a store and look at how they display their products. I'll circle back and again say that item description sheets are also a great tool here that you can use to add color and images to your display, especially if you have something just like a plain black and white gift certificate. So if you're trying to sell an Italian dinner for 4, you can add the gift certificate next to an item description sheet with pictures of lasagna and garlic bread that you know will appeal to people and help them better understand what they're bidding on. Again, link to the template in bio or make your own, up to you. You'll also need a bid sheet for each item, which is perhaps one of the most important documents involved. At the top, you'll want to have the item info as well as the starting bid and the minimum bid increment. And in the table below, you'll want to have fields for all of your bidder info. I'd recommend collecting both phone number and email address if you can. And this is also how you'll let people know whether or not they won. You'll want to make sure that the start and end time for the silent auction is very clear to avoid people getting upset or missing out on items. So try to have both a poster and also some announcements that repeat the time so people know for sure. This is also a great way to put pressure on bidders. Make an announcement when there's 30 minutes left in the auction, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 1 minute, as long as it won't disrupt the rest of your event. You'll also want to have really clear policies on how people can collect their items and figure out who won. Standard practice is to circle the name of the last bid on the page, and that way they'll know that it was their bid that won. And then you can either have one policy per item or one policy for all items, though there will probably be some differences if there's any custom items, for example, a handcrafted sign that wouldn't be picked up at the event but would have to be coordinated with the artist. So just make sure everyone knows and be patient when people have questions, because what might be very clear to you might not be clear to them. And if you do get questions, remember to use that opportunity to thank that person again for their donation and also congratulate them on their item. You really want people to walk away from your event feeling good about what they've won and also what they've been able to contribute. So once the auction's over, you can give yourself a pat on the back for a job well done. All that's left to do is thank everyone who contributed and set yourself up for next year. A nice practice is to send out an email or make social media posts after the event to let people know how much they've raised. This is a great opportunity to remind them where the money is going and what kind of difference their donation's making. Next, sending thank you letters to your donors is a must. This isn't just about expressing gratitude, which is very important, but also about setting up a positive relationship so you can work with them in the future. Let them know how many people attended the event and saw their name, logo, and item, and how much money their item helped raise. I mean, use your judgment here. If it didn't bring in a lot, maybe just mention the total from the silent auction as a whole. But again, find a way to make them feel like they've really helped you make a difference. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover for how to plan a silent auction. If there's anything I missed or any other questions you have, feel free to leave me a comment below, and also send me a message if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover. I'd also encourage you to check out my 5 templates bundle, which I'll link in the description, which has all the documents you need to plan a successful silent auction. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.